He's Chase Sr. I'm Harrison Graham. College football playoff is almost here, just in a few weeks. The Michigan Wolverines will take on the Georgia Bulldogs down in Miami for the Orange Bowl for semifinal number 2, semifinal number 1, of course, Alabama and Cincinnati. And Chase, I think this is the one that people are really anticipating or anxious for because, A, it's the primetime game, and 2, most people think this game has a better chance of being close between a pair of 12-1 teams.
And it's how both teams are playing right now. Michigan is red hot on both sides of the football, and Georgia, how are they mentally going to rebound from really getting dominated by Alabama after they were able to take that 10-0 lead, and Alabama came back thanks to Bryce Young just chucking dimes and just making plays happen. So those are two of the pending storylines that I'm following in the weeks going up to this game.
Now, something very interesting, and we're going to break this down from an X's and O's and from a bunch of different angles. What's interesting about this is Georgia is 7.5-point favorites, and I get it. Throughout the season, this looked like the best team in the country, but they play Alabama, and I won't say completely get exposed because I think in a rematch they would certainly have a chance against Alabama. Yep. But is Michigan getting disrespected? Outside of one bad quarter against Michigan State, you could argue this has been the most consistent team in the country for most of this year.
Yeah, look, and in the college football playoffs in years past, it's always been the SEC teams dominating pretty much every other conference outside of Clemson in the ACC, challenging Alabama and winning a couple of those national championship games with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. But historically, it's been SEC well ahead of the Big Ten.
Yep.
But in a year like this, where there's so much parity, and really there hasn't been a clear-cut number one team, I think that opens up the doors for anything to be happening, and I don't think we should be surprised by anything. And I do think that Michigan is getting a little bit disrespected by this line, especially because we saw a Georgia offense get stopped and confused by a very good Alabama defensive line. Alabama's offensive line was also dominant. I'm looking at a Michigan defensive line going up against a Georgia offensive line that was exposed last week, led by two of the top pass rushers in the college football atmosphere that we're about to break down here in just a bit. So I think Michigan's defensive line can really wreck this game, and I'm not sure if Stetson Bennett can lift you to a national title.
Yeah, I think and I've said that all year. Georgia looks like the best team. Georgia looks like the best team. But I wasn't convinced then, and I'm not convinced now that you can win a national title with Stetson Bennett. Now, you could say that on the Michigan side as well. It's not like Cade McNamara is a world beater. I think these two quarterbacks are very similar, but I don't think 7.5, 8 points is fair for a team that just couldn't get over their biggest mental hurdle hump in Alabama. Sure, Michigan doesn't have Bryce Young, and they may not have quite the speed at receiver, but they are built very similar to Georgia. Yeah. Like, who's to say Michigan can't win this game 20-17?
I think they
outgrind them. I think that's very much a possibility. And Stetson Bennett under pressure, Chase, is not the same guy. Now, if the pocket's clean, he can make the throws. He can run around. We've seen all that. Kind of like Cade McNamara. If you give him time, he can make plays. But with Ajabo and Hutchinson, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, they can really fluster Bennett, in my opinion, and we saw last week he is capable of throwing the ball to the other team.
Here's the thing, too. The pressure is all on the side of Georgia. Everybody was talking about them going into the SEC championship game as one of the best teams that we've ever seen in the history of college football.
Michigan's playing with house money,
which to me is disrespectful to LSU back in 2019 because I think that LSU team is the best team that I've seen in the modern era. But all of the pressure right now is on Georgia because of how they played against Alabama. They are 7.5 point favorites. Michigan, on the other hand, 7.5 point underdogs. They don't have any pressure on them. They're going to be able to play a free-flowing style, and I do like how both of these styles for both teams on both sides of the ball very similar.
And while you get your votes in who you got, Michigan, Georgia, MICH for Michigan, UGA for Georgia, Michigan's a blue blood, yes, there's no doubt, but this is their first time in the playoff, and they're the first team to get in as an unranked team in the preseason. They were on nobody's radar. You know what the chatter around Michigan was? Is Harbaugh and Gaddis on the hot seat coming into this year.
In hindsight, pretty ridiculous.
That has obviously changed very quickly, but sure, if you're Michigan and you're a Michigan fan, you want to win this game, and I would say you somewhat expect it based on how the season they've had this year, but they're playing somewhat pressure-free compared to Georgia. If you're a Georgia fan, you're like, oh, here we go again. Are we gonna get to the big moment and kind of shrivel like we did in the SEC title game?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure on Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs. Who you got? Let us know down in the comments. You look at these quarterbacks, and I think there's a lot of similarities.
So similar.
And the numbers really back them up. The volume certainly benefits Stetson Bennett, and I would say he's a little bit more mobile. But I would also argue that McNamara is less prone to making that big mistake that can really, be a backbreaker for you.
Both of them similar also in this fashion. When they get pressured, when the pocket gets muddied, they're just not the same quarterback.
They don't have the physical
talent.
talent.
And you don't want to have to rely on Stetson Bennett. You don't want to have to rely on Cade McNamara to drop back 30, 40 times and win you a game like Bryce Young. So that's also going to come down. This game is going to come down to how these two quarterbacks play and how the game flow kind of predicates and dictates how each of these guys has to play through the pass game.
And look, I want to just pose the question. I think the answer is yes, but if I'm Kirby Smart, I'm at least having conversations with my staff of, hey, should we give JT Daniels some first-team reps over the next month just to have him ready in case Bennett struggles early? Because, look, Bennett's been steady most of the year. That was a bad performance against Bama, though. I thought he started to press when they got behind. You can't afford to do that, especially when you're a really good team. You have to stay the course. He did not do that. I wonder if they'll stick with Stetson Bennett, if they'll give JT Daniels a look. I think Bennett will start. He's earned that. But I do think you would be remiss to not have JT Daniels ready in this game, Chase.
And I don't think it's the craziest thing to say or predict forward that, like, maybe J.J. McCarthy and or JT Daniels play in this game. I don't think it's
McCarthy will have
say.
a role. He's played in just about every game this year.
I'm talking more of his wildcat role, though.
Sure.
It wouldn't surprise me or shock me one bit if we see the backup quarterbacks in this game if the game gets off to a slow way for both of these guys.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see that kind of chess match between Smart and Harbaugh in this one. Subscribe to the channel. We're taking over college football on YouTube. These are just the facts. The numbers prove it. Subscribe now if you want to be a part of this movement. We crossed 270,000 subs. We're trying to get to 300,000 as soon as possible. So subscribe. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. Do not miss any of our coverage here on the channel. We also have NFL and NBA videos as well, if that's your sort of thing. But a lot of college football coverage over the next several weeks here on Chat Sports. We're going to roll straight into this, Jeremy. I guess we are. Okay, if you want to go bet on this game, BetUS, go to chatsports.com/bet. Use our promo code CHAT125. Chase, we've been making money all season long. Tell the folks how they can go bet on this game.
It's really easy. All the information is on your screen right now. You got to go to chatsports.com/bet, enter the promo code CHAT125, and automatically for first-time signups, you get a 125% deposit bonus. So what that means is you use that link as well as that promo code, and let's just say you put in $100 into your account. Automatically, by using that information, you get an additional $125 back. That's $225 to game with. Coming down the stretch here in the NFL season, college bowl games coming up as well. It's the perfect time to start betting on some of these games, and this deal applies for anybody, regardless of where you live.
Yeah, and if you want to go bet on this one, Georgia 7.5-point favorites. The over/under 44.5. I mean, I kind of like the over in this one.
I'm not going to lie. I could see it be a knockout, drag-out type of game.
Yeah.
Two really good defenses.
It's going to be interesting. Neither offense is really built to just go hang 30 on the other, so we'll see how it shakes out. I do love Michigan as 7.5-point dogs. I think they can cover that for sure. Chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125. That is the place to go. All right, Aidan Hutchinson, got to talk about the Heisman finalist here, what he's meant to this program. Could have gone pro last year, would have been a first or second round pick. Good decision to come back. A, he beats Ohio State and he's got a chance to win a national title. B, he might be the number one pick here in April's draft, but he really makes this defense go.
Yeah, he's a Detroit, Michigan, obviously Michigan Wolverine guy, and by going back to college, Detroit Lions, if they get that number one pick, he could end up being the guy. 55 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 14 sacks on the year, 10 quarterback hits. And this kind of goes back to the point that I had made earlier, and it's really the biggest aspect of this preview and this game. It's the play of Aidan Hutchinson and David Ajabu. Both of these guys are going to be first-round picks, by the way, in my opinion, and both can cause destruction and change the complexion of this game. And whether it's JT Daniels, whether it's Stetson Bennett, if Hutchinson and Ajabu are able to have their way, they can change this game and they can win it for Michigan if Georgia is unable to do anything offensively. You take away that run game with a guy like James Cook and you force Bennett or Daniels to throw, that makes this Georgia offense lackluster to a certain degree. And both of these guys, straight up studs, HG.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're both saying it. This defensive line can change a game. We've seen it several times this year. I do think that Georgia will start Bennett because of his mobility in case they are getting beat up front a little bit. They need to have that X factor of Bennett being able to move, whereas JT Daniels kind of just a straight drop back passer. Obviously, the Bulldogs would like to get James Cook going here. 6 yards a carry, doesn't get a lot of touches for some reason. He's been banged up a little bit, does have 7 touchdowns this year. I think if you're Georgia, you got to find a way to take some pressure off Bennett. He dropped back way too much in that Alabama game.
And James Cook getting going could be a part of that. So, too, could Brock Bowers, who, when he is draft eligible, I think he could go in the first round as a rare tight end going in the first round of the NFL draft. He has set all types of records this year for the Georgia Bulldogs, going down the seam, out routes, crossing the middle, whatever he has to do. This guy is a fantastic player. Brute, physical force, really athletic, good leaping ability for his size, has excellent soft hands. I think the pressure from Alabama got to him just a bit, but he was still able to make plays happen. Really key for him to have a big game against Michigan for Georgia to be successful.
Is George Pickens an X factor in this game?
I think so.
Now that he's back?
He reminds me a lot of like an Alshon Jeffrey. I mean, he comes back for the first time last week, and his first catch was a deep ball down the sideline in which he had to high point it like Alshon Jeffrey did back in the day for South Carolina. So I do think you're right on that.
Better defense, Michigan, Georgia. I think you could go either way. Type MD for the Michigan defense, type GD for the Georgia defense. They're just kind of different. I think Michigan's front is better.
Yeah.
You could probably argue Georgia's secondary is a bit better, but they're both excellent. There's no doubt. MD for Michigan, GD for Georgia. Blake Corum, Hassan Haskins, 2 running backs that are totally different in style. Now, Corum, missed 4 or 5 games, has been banged up, but he's played the last couple of weeks. So Haskins had a bigger role there. But you're talking about a tailback duo that if Corum doesn't get hurt, they both go over 1,000. Haskins kind of that more bruising type. He's going to fight for those extra yardage. And then Corum can hit the home run at any time here, Chase.
I mean, it's not often in college football that you have 2 backs rushing for about 1,000 yards. Hassan Haskins is already there with almost 1,300, and then Blake Corum is 61 yards away from getting to that 1,000 mark. This is another big part of the game for me. You get that ground game going. It opens up the pass game, just traditional Harbaugh football, and that's where things could get really interesting, is if Michigan is able to gash the Georgia defense on the ground.
Yeah, and listen, I think this game is very simple to me, Chase.
It's really an old school type of game, isn't it?
Who wins in the trenches?
Yep.
I mean, I really think it's that simple. And I know that's like, oh, well, you could say that every game. Not really, because when you have a game changer at quarterback like Bryce Young, you can lose in the trenches sometimes and still win. This game is who's going to win up front. Who wants – this is the classic, the Dan Campbell type of speech. Who wants it more? Who's going to knock off the opposing team's head? That's how this game's going to be, man.
Yeah.
Like, which team is going to win those 50-50 type of plays?
I actually like that style, too.
I mean, that's it. This is old school 1980. No, I think it's a good change of pace to get a game like this and see which team is more physical, because that's, I think, is what it's going to come down to. So who's going to win this game? Who's going to win the college football playoff? Type M for the Michigan Wolverines. Type A for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Type G for the Georgia Bulldogs. Type C for the Cincinnati Bearcats. Get your votes in. Who is going to win the college football playoff?